Forever Purge is the fifth installment of the Purge film series. This one is written by James DeMonaco like the others, but it is not directed by him. Similarly to the last one, the first Purge, it is directed by some guy that you might know if you have a huge expansive knowledge of like every single TV director there is, because that's kind of it. Not that that's a bad thing, I'm just saying that you probably won't recognize the name of the directors of these last two Purge movies. I certainly did not. This movie focuses on a couple different characters in the setting of Texas. We got a rancher family take care of the horses and put on their cowboy hats and all that, and then you have an immigrant couple from Mexico. This is their first Purge in America, so you get to experience the Purge in two different kind of ways. But then the Purge ends and it's like, all right, time to get back to normal. This is how things usually go. But then there are these people that decide to uprise and they're like, you know what? Once a year, one night, I don't think that's for us. We need to purge all the time. You know what I'm saying? So now there's a Forever Purge movement going on that's terrorizing everyone across America. And these characters have to band together to survive, even though there might be some racial tensions between some people in the groups. I'm just going to be upfront. I have not been a fan of this series at all. I rewatched all of the movies before this, and I even watched both seasons of the TV show. I don't know why I did that, because it's not like any of the movies or even the show ties in, like story-wise, other than just the overall premise. I don't know. I guess I just decided just to give it another shot for whatever reason, because there are some people that do enjoy these films. They do enjoy a lot of the ideas that they bring up, but I'm sorry, I just can't get into them. Even the show, it's really shitty. It's one of the worst shows I think I've ever seen. Every single problem that's in the Purge movies is present in the show, but longer. So it's, I can't take these movies. I will say they've all gotten better since the first one. The first Purge movie is still the worst one, because that really is the one where they just had no idea what to do with the premise for some reason. They were just like, hey, we want to keep it on the cheap, so put it in a house. Well, we'll save up on money by not going to different locations and, you know, limiting down the action by just putting it in this one setting. But don't worry, we'll class it up with Ethan Hawke and Lena Headey. That'll help. And of course, that movie made a ton of money, so now they've been able to go outside and do stuff around the city avoiding crime. So those have been the better Purge movies, but they're still bad. You know, that they all have their own share of issues that they've just collectively kept over the years. Bad acting, bad writing, unbelievable scenarios, bad filmmaking, so you're not thrilled or in suspense about anything going on. You're not scared. I was just going into this movie thinking this is probably just going to be another bad Purge movie, because it's got the same writer still, James DeMonaco. It doesn't seem like they're going to switch it up in any ways, and I don't see this movie turning out good. And I was right. This movie sucks. It's still fucking terrible. I feel like my thing is just like, overall, I can never buy into the premise of this movie. Even with the first Purge, when they tried to explain it, I still couldn't buy into what they were selling. It was like they came up with an explanation as to why the Purge is happening, but they came up with an explanation that wasn't clever or unique. It was just like, hey, we know that this is a bullshit kind of idea too, but if this happened, like this kind of bullshit explanation, then obviously now everything makes sense, right? And I was like, no, I want to see, what I've always wanted to see with these Purge movies is just like a deep dive into like the different steps into how the NFFA ideology snuck its way into government, implanted in the minds of others, into the minds of followers, into the minds of just the regular people in America. I wanted to see that step by step and actually show us how this could be possible by showing like real life examples, doing it in a realistic way, you know, doing something where it's scary how this could actually happen, one of those things. But instead, that's never been their focus. Their focus has always been, well, we just want to get to the Purge so we can just have violent murders and scary scenes, guys. So I've always felt alienated by these movies, because what I want to see, what I think could actually be like a really interesting like social satire or commentary on our country. Instead, I don't think this premise is actually fully explored at all. It's just always something that they drop on you, and when you're like, that's fucking ridiculous, that's so stupid, they're just like, well, don't worry about it, you know, just accept it, and then we can get to the fun horror stuff. but the fun horror stuff isn't actually fun. It's terrible. But I do want to give some of the Purge movies credit sometimes, though, because there are certain things that they do that they try to expand the world, or they try to show, like, well, what if this happened during the Purge? If the Purge was a thing, wouldn't this play a factor? And I always find those ideas kind of interesting. I do always try to give them credit for at least not doing the same exact thing over and over again, even though it does follow a specific formula. They try to switch it up with different kind of character dynamics or different kind of ideas, and that's always interesting to me. But at the end of the day, there's always other things in these movies that undercut them, or you're not engaged with, or you don't believe them at all. Because, like, something that they have been doing over the past couple years is that they keep expanding what can go down during the Purge to the point where it's hard to buy that anything can actually be happening without just massive traffic interjection, you know what I mean? Like, especially if you watch the Purge TV show, there's like organizations that'll kidnap people and put them into like these like auctions for purgers to buy and then purge, you know? Like, there's organizations like that. There's other people that will kidnap people off of the streets and put them up for whatever it is that they desire, you know? It's hard to believe that anything can actually be happening on Purge nights. But something that they always maintain is that there are people that are purging, like a lot of the purgers that are like, you know, we gotta follow the rules, you know, it separates us from the animals. So when the sirens blare, they're like, all right, let's go back to being normal and shit. Like, they're totally fine with the purge that they have gotten. But this movie wants us to believe that there are enough people that are unsatisfied with that number, with these rules. There's enough people to sweep the entire nation of America, to completely overthrow like local governments, the fucking military even. There's enough of those kind of purgers out there. Even though the show and the movies have already established that probably isn't the case, because there's also an equal number of people that are like, hey guys, you gotta stop purging after Purge night. Come on, this is what separates us from the animals, you idiots. Like, that's something that they have openly established, but it seems like they've changed their own lore, their own history, just so they can make this movie. There's a line in the beginning of this movie that completely throws out the Purge election year. If you remember the Purge election year, you know, Frank Grillo, who was protecting a presidential candidate, you know, they won. The presidential candidate won by a landslide. So she was very popular, even though she wanted to get rid of the Purge. And then at the end of that movie, she got elected, she got rid of it. But there were these people that were throwing riots in the streets in support of the NFFA and the Purge. They want it back. So I was thinking, going into this movie, that's the premise, is that this is going to be like maybe just in Texas, there's these couple organized people that are going to uprise and they want the Purge back. This is their new Purge if they can't get one for one night. But instead, in the beginning of this movie, during like montage opening title sequence, there's one line of dialogue, just one, where they go, the NFFA has retaken office and they have brought back the Purge. And it's like, what happened to the lady Frank Grillo was protecting? What, did they kill her, or was she just voted out? They retook office, but she won by a landslide. How is this possible? What happened here? And they just never explain it. It's just one of those things where they're like, we want the Purge back, we want another Purge movie, so just forget what happened in election year. And it's like, no, I can't. It's like, oh my god, it's so stupid. If you ever had any doubt about what this series is all about, it's not about smart social commentary or anything like that. It's just about fucking scares. But not even good ones. They're all poorly done. It's kind of funny that over the years, after Anarchy, I will say, there's been a noticeable kind of downgrade as far as quality goes, where they felt more TV. Like, the first Purge was like the most TV it felt, and then they made a TV show, and I was like, that's pretty on brand. So I guess it makes sense that this movie would feel even more like a TV show than the actual TV show. This is a horribly made movie. You can feel how cheap it is. They have several visual effects shots that look garbage. They look terrible. And I don't mean to diss on any visual effects artists out there, because they do some great work, but the ones in this movie just look so bad because they're so unconvincing. You can tell that it's digital. The suspenseful sequences aren't even suspenseful because the camera is it's either focusing on something too dark or it's shaking about too much, and you can't tell what the characters are even doing to try to survive, you know? There's a moment where they try to do a tracking shot. Like, it starts off in a truck and it swivels around everyone, someone starts to get out, but then it cuts to another angle, and I was like, oh, that's weird. It felt like they were literally starting up a tracking shot sequence, but alright, I guess this is, it's cut to a different angle, literally, like, not like a hidden cut. They cut to a completely different side. But then that even continues on as a tracking shot. So I was wondering, holy shit, They wanted to do a tracking shot starting from the truck to where we are now, but something went wrong in the edit or something went wrong during production and they were like, fuck it, let's just split it up. It's so noticeable. And then the following tracking shot we get is not suspenseful. It's poorly done. It feels slow. Despite it supposedly being like an intense fast sequence, it just feels slow. There's horrible 80-yard lines of people running at them that they then kill. It's embarrassing. At one point, an explosion happens. Even the camera falls over. And the camera, the way it then gets up, it looks like a person getting up. So I was like, are we looking at someone's POV? But you know, everyone then comes in front of the camera, so it can't be a POV. It's just, they had no way of smoothly getting the camera back up because it was all handheld. So what we're seeing is just the cameraman getting up. It's like, oh my god, it's so embarrassing. The somewhat cool costumes can only take you guys so far, especially since all of the actors are fucking terrible. I don't mean every single actor in the movie. There's some main characters that I'm like, you know what, performance-wise, it's not bad. Like Ana de la Guerra, who is in Army of the Dead. Like, you know, she's fine. You know, her husband's fine. Not everyone is awful, but it's the Purgers mostly that are so fucking bad. There's a character in the beginning of the film, before the Purge even starts. He says one line of dialogue, and I was like, oh, they're gonna come back later. They're gonna be part of the Forever Purge uprising, right? And I was right. And I could tell because of the quality of the line delivery. For some reason, Blumhouse just finds the worst actors to play these Purgers, and it doesn't help that over the years, they've all felt exactly the same. You know, they just act like psychopaths, the exact same psychopath, you know, always wearing costumes, doing the head bobs, and just saying bad dialogue with the worst inflections, the worst reads. It's embarrassing what they do to some of these people in these movies. I even wanted to give them some credit for some of the more personal character stories that they tried to throw in, like the immigrant family. It's like, yeah, that's not a bad story idea as far as like a conflict, you know, you're leaving Mexico because, you know, something bad obviously happened there, or just you want a better life, and then you just come into this place where because of your social status, you're more at risk of being purged than anyone. So it's like, it's an interesting idea, and I wanted to buy into that. I wanted to like these characters, but they don't even give you enough time in the beginning to actually get to know them other than they're immigrants. You know, it's like, I wanted to get to know them more personally. I want that so deeply, and I just didn't get that at all. But I don't get that from the ranchers either, you know, just we get a scene where, you know, they're being cowboys and Josh Lucas is a little racist, and that's all their characters are. I hate to diss on Josh Lucas because he isn't a bad actor. It's just in this movie he's coupled with trying to do a semi-southern kind of accent. He says y'all a lot in specific sentences that don't feel like they have earned a y'all. You know what I mean? Like, oh god. He's not even completely awful in this movie. Obviously there are people that are worse. It's just, you know, there's aspects of that performance that I just found, and some of it is the fact that his character just feels so bare bones except for racist, who's not going to be racist at a certain point. So like all the other Purge movies, it has some awful acting, bad dialogue, bad writing as far as creating satire off of the premise. It's all falling flat. There's no suspenseful sequences because the filmmaking is so poor. Not that it's necessarily the director's fault, it's just, it comes from the nature of doing TV stuff. It literally feels like a TV show. There's one moment where Josh Lucas gets false jumped by his wife, and it's, oh god, it was embarrassing. Near the end of the movie, there's literally a moment where a character is supposed to walk up into center frame and say a line of dialogue, but the camera shakes a little bit when she comes up and when she says the line, but I could see her mouth wasn't moving. It was literally so obviously ADR that they had to literally shake it just to try to hide it. But I saw it, and then there's a point later where a character is like walking away from someone who just saved their life, and they're a little further away from center frame, but you know, they're still right there. They do a little like kind of turn and wave up as they keep going, but the line that they then say, it doesn't look like or even sound like it's coming from the person that you are looking at. It doesn't look like the person that is like kind of tired and can barely do like, you know, a wave like that as they walk away. It sounds like a line that would come from like a hero shot or something like that. It sounds like a line coming from someone in an ADR booth, you know, completely outside of the context of the scene. And it's just so lazy. There's so many lazy technical elements of this movie. It's embarrassing. All of this building to a faux inspirational ending where there's some kind of hope that people will fight back against these fucking purgers that have completely taken over America. We have no idea what America's gonna be now, but there are people standing up to these purgers, and that's pretty cool, right? And it's like, no, this is so stupid. Once again, there would not be this amount of people that would be able to successfully overthrow everyone in America. You know, the military going in, being skilled, trained killers, finding these purgers who are just basically at the end of the day just willy-nilly, especially these kind that are just disobeying rules. I feel like you'd find like an ex-military purger among the people that are like, we gotta separate ourselves from the animals, that crowd. So going up against like basically an incel with an axe, you know, they'd just be able to like skillfully take them out and then just move on. But this movie wants you to believe that there's enough of these purgers that they can just blow up military bases and just completely get rid of them and be equally matched. And it's embarrassing that they want us to buy that. I can buy them potentially being a threat to someone on the street just kind of trying to duck and hide and live. But as soon as you put these purgers against like a trained military force, you know, game over. They're not skilled. They're not tactical. Maybe a couple groups are, but even then it's like, you know, outnumbered by like so many. Like, I don't know. Like, what? There's just so much that I can't buy about this movie. But this is not new. These are problems that have persisted throughout the entire franchise. What happened is that they keep making money because the budgets are so low. So they're like, instead of offering notes that could potentially fix it, you know, make a better movie, let's just make sure we don't get in the way of what makes us money. Maybe just insert an idea that doesn't change much of the formula or anything, you know, and those problems have just persisted because of that. Oh my god, it's embarrassing. I don't know why Jason Blum, seen here trying to appeal to the TikTok crowd, I'm not going to play the audio because it might not be royalty free, but it's the most cringy thing. Find it on his Instagram. It's the cringiest thing I've seen a 40-year-old, maybe 50-year-old producer try to do to appeal to a crowd of teens to try to see his movie and make more money off of them so he can continue to make movies and make more money off of them. But he's like in an interview recently going like, I feel like we can make more Purge movies. I can be very persuasive, wink wink, you know, the potential for this franchise is endless. And it's like, bro, you are bordering on running out of ideas. You know, you've used up a lot of stuff in that show, you used it all up in these movies, and the filmmaking quality is getting worse and worse, and it doesn't help that the premise is still garbo. You know, it's embarrassing how much of a cash cow this is for the studio, but that's all it is. They try to treat it like, oh, it's some smart social satire because that's what we're all about at Blumhouse, doing social satires and shit. And it's like, no, you're not. Only your best filmmakers are about that. You are a businessman, and I respect the hustle. I really do, because he's made a great business for himself, a great business model. But it's embarrassing how they try to paint this Purge franchise as more than what it actually is, which is just the studio cash cow. They use the money on this to fund their other projects, potentially their better projects. I also heard recently that he's producing like some Exorcist remake sequel, something like that, and it's like, dude, I wasn't even completely sold on what you did with that new Halloween movie, and I'm also not sold with what you did with Black Christmas, The Craft Legacy, Fantasy Island. Like, I don't know why Jason Blum is gonna be the one doing this Exorcist thing, why anyone is touching The Exorcist at all, but I don't know why I don't know why this is happening. I don't think people realize that Jason Blum is about as talented as the filmmakers that he chooses to work with. His best movies in that company are the ones that feel the most polar opposite to Blumhouse. And I don't just mean Whiplash and BlacKkKlansman, but I mean The Gift, Get Out, Ouija Origin of Evil. Some of their top horror movies are the ones that actually succeed in scaring you. There's some craft behind what's going on with the filmmaking. And some of the worst parts of those movies are the ones that feel like Blumhouse movies. Like, you know, The Gift, where they inserted like a random jump scare moment with Joel Edgerton, you know, a dream sequence Rebecca Hall had. That was like my least favorite part about The Gift, but it feels the most like Blumhouse. Everything else is fantastic. So I feel like more people just need to understand that at the end of the day, Jason Blum is a businessman. He might have some ideas, but I feel like, you know, side more with the filmmakers that actually have something to say, something intelligent to say, something, you know, something skillful up their sleeve, as opposed to like James DeMonaco, who has like been involved with all of these movies and none of them have been able to get to the level of good, and they've only gotten worse as time goes on. I'm gonna give The Forever Purge a D+. I'm done talking about this movie. I don't want to talk about it anymore. It's fucking terrible. Don't watch it. Stay home and watch Fear Street Part 1 on Netflix. Much better horror movie. Much better movie just in general compared to The Forever Purge. Just don't go see The Forever Purge. I want this franchise to die. I want this to be like what happened to Happy Death Day 2U, which is a movie I like, but that flopped, and now the future of Happy Death Day 3 is kind of up in the air. I want that with this movie series, you know? It's time for it to stop. You know, they're not going anywhere. But if you've seen The Forever Purge, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.